So, a very good evening to everyone that's present with us today on live stream and also physically. So, this is the final debating session for day three of MUSA General Elections 2024. And here with us today is the MUISS Country Representative Officer candidate, Dylan from Equitas. And with us as well as also the office bearers from MUISS, who are Mustafa and also Ikra. So without further ado, let's listen to the opening statement from Dylan that he wants to share to all the student community.
Hello? Hello, hello?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Hello? Okay, thank you. So, hello everyone. My name is Dylan, and I'm a second year SAM 1 student studying chemical engineering. And today it's an honor to be seated among all of you beautiful people here, the respected committee members, and at the same time, the current OBs and also the audience here that's come to watch the debate. It's an honor to be able to sit here with you guys, and at the same time give out my thoughts and opinions and my reasoning on why I signed up to become a candidate for Country Representative Officer for this year for MUISS. And just a quick background about myself. I don't want to talk much about myself, but I'll give a background on why I signed up for this position is because, number one, I come from a very international background. I moved around a lot when I was a child. At the same time, I've been exposed to many different cultures throughout my life. And I've been lucky enough to be able to meet a lot of people from different places in the world and be able to mingle with them and communicate with them and form connections. And at the same time, I'm also familiar with Model United Nations. I've competed a lot in Model United Nations and have a sense on diplomacy and how international relations goes about. So that's also one of the reasons why I signed up for the CRO position. And at the same time, I'd also like to say that me signing up for this position of becoming country representative officer isn't just for me to gloat or brag about the fact that I'm in MUIS and at the same time I have a position like CRO. At the same time, with all the skills and all the connections and all the attributes I possess from growing up in that environment and being exposed to all those cultures, I feel the need to be able to serve people around me. At the same time, play a part in uni to be able to form those connections that most people may not have. And at the same time, use the skills for communication and at the same time for organization to be able to make sure that, number one, Monash still maintains as an international university for everyone. And at the same time, I do my part and do my service to be able to make this a much more inclusive and much more comforting and welcoming environment for international students who come here to Monash. So with that being said, I'll move on to my manifesto. So in my manifesto, the first point I made was fair conflict resolution. And I specifically said, I'll quote unquote myself, I'll make sure that any conflicts between or among international communities are handled fairly and with respect, ensuring that everyone feels heard and valued within the student association. So I would like to explain what that actually means, because in my opinion, from how I see it, is that conflicts are often caused by miscommunications that lead to misunderstandings. And a lot of the times conflicts that end up becoming big more than they should be end up, the stem is from miscommunication that leads to misunderstanding among people, which causes those disagreements and problems. And another one and to further explain, as a CRO, I'll focus on understanding the root causes on the conflict, because without understanding the root causes, I won't be able to get to the bottom of the conflicts that do happen. So this will include either facilitating open discussions among the committee, understanding where these problems come from, and at the same time, making a win-win solution for everyone in the end. And also, when it comes to crises, they can happen unexpectedly. So to make sure that these things are mitigated and maintained, it starts from the accountability of the team, which I want to stress highly when it comes to becoming the CRO, because at the same time, I'm going to have a higher responsibility, and the people around me, the CRs who I'm going to pick, are also going to have accountability and responsibility for their actions. So I want to make sure that everyone understands respect and discipline, and at the same time, accountability for their actions while I'm a CRO. The second part of my manifesto is a united front. And what that means is, quote unquote, again, myself, my focus is to bring international students together by fostering meaningful connections, building a community where we all work towards shared goals and stronger relationships across the university. Now, what does that mean? So for me, a united front is being able to understand that there's so many cultures in Monash, there's so many different international student communities, but how can we bridge those connections together, fill in that gap? Because from what I see from being a year two SEM 1 student, I may not have been here for a while, but I do understand that Of course, when it comes to international communities, there's a place for everyone. But I feel that Monash University should be a place for everyone, no matter what, no matter who you are. So my opinion when it comes to United Front is number one, to make sure that despite the diversity in Monash, I see a vision to bring more people together through cultural events, where Monashians can mingle and form bonds with one another despite their differences, ensuring that respect and tolerance continues to foster international relationships on campus. And I would like to also give a quick example on a quick example. I don't know if any of y'all have picked up, but there's a lot of European students that walk around campus, and from my opinion, there's not necessarily a place for them to go or a community to go. So I'm just saying this just as a way on what I would think of doing to improve is maybe create more communities for minority groups, for people who don't necessarily have a place around uni, to make sure that they have the best and most welcoming experience here. And number three, which is the last part of my manifesto, is support and empowerment. And I'll quote myself again. As your CRO, I'll ensure international students have access to the resources and opportunities needed to thrive, so everyone feels supported in achieving both personal and academic success. Now, I do understand that as a CRO, I have no responsibility when it comes to academics, but I'm simply saying that when it comes to support and empowerment, I'm going to ensure that everyone is taken care of and that among the international community, everyone is supported, students' concerns are heard from the bottom up. And at the same time, I can also relate to other minority groups that may not feel that they're heard within the university. And I want to make sure that with this experience that I have, I want to bridge that gap to be able to make all the students, international students in Monash who seem lost in campus, be connected with the student body, to one another, and to the communities that they fall in. So that would be it for me.
All right. So thank you so much, Dylan. That's a great opening statement. So now I would like to invite the current MUISS CRO, Mustafa and Ikra, to the stage to ask you a few questions. Please give a round of applause to them.
Hello, Dylan, and hello to everyone who's present here. I'm Mustafa, the current MUISS Country Representative Officer alongside Ikra.
Hello everyone, I'm Ikra, the current Country Representative Officer.
Alright. So, Dylan, firstly, can you begin by giving a brief overview of your past experience and how it aligns with your current position?
Okay, so thanks you for the question, Mustafa. So when it comes to my experience, when it comes to organization, I will be honest that I am premature. I do lack experience when it comes to working in an organization. But I will say that for this time's Monash Cup, I was the Monash pool captain. So I was also in charge of handling practices, organizing practices, and at the same time, picking out the players that I thought were suited for the Monash Cup competition. And of course, that came with, number one, I had to communicate with all the members. At the same time, I had to set up the tryouts and also negotiate with my co-captain to be able to set up those events and also discuss with them on who the players are. And at the same time, during that time, I also talked closely with the Manticore, since I'm part of Manticore vice captain and captain, which I got offered the position to be part of the sponsorship. Not sponsorship, but I got offered to be ELO, which unfortunately I didn't get. But I did understand that when it came to sponsorships, which Manticore did get, which was from the sports drink company Vida, we did end up securing that sponsorship. And even though that I wasn't necessarily a major part of it, I did understand that there was a lot of processes and a lot of steps to get to that sponsorship, and it wasn't as easy as just making a phone call or email. When it comes to organizational experience, I will say back in high school, I was part of the student council. I was part of the public relations department, which my job was with every event that comes, I have to make sure that I have to find the other schools that want to join my event. At the same time, I have to talk to companies who want to sponsor the events. And at the same time, when events finish, I also have to send them the emails, the certificates. So I was quite in charge of more so the communication aspect when it comes to organizations.
All right, thank you, Dylan. So my question would be, as you know, One World is one of the flagship events managed by the CRO. Given that other MUSA departments like CNS also host bazaars, how would you ensure that One World distinguishes itself and remains a unique and standout event among these other bazaars as well?
So do mistake me if I'm wrong, but my understanding of One World is that it's a bazaar event that lasts 1 to 2 days, where all the communities, international communities in Monash come up and they host bazaars, they sell food, and they talk about their culture, like their dresses and what they wear. Is that it? Okay.
Yeah.
So just wanted to clarify that. So so how I see One World going about is that number one, it's supposed to showcase the international communities that are present in Monash. It's a way for them to sort of express and show their cultures to people that may not even know what their culture is. And as a CRO, I would make sure that number one, that each and every culture in Monash has a fair representation, has a good chance, has a network, has a form of media that they can express their cultures to the people that may not know what their culture is. Because at the end of the day, maybe these people who don't know that much about the culture just don't have a way to connect or see that, oh, this is their culture. So number one, I'd make sure that uh, as what my predecessors, Mustafa Ikra, have done well, which is handle the One World event, I would follow the same steps as you have done. And most importantly, is that I emphasize and make sure that I put priority in the cultures that are present there and host, and not necessarily host, but make sure that the people who attend there learn something about their culture. They don't simply just walk by and see that, oh, so this culture is here, this is this culture there. Make it more interactive for the people there, and at the same time make sure that they understand that this is not only them that's in the university. They're surrounded with a bunch other international students too that they collaborate with.
All right. Well answered, Dylan. Now, the next question which I have for you is, now, given that the CRO position, generally there are two CROs, right? And you are applying as a solo candidate. Now, given from our experiences, the workload which is associated with this position, it's better to have two people in charge of it. It's not easy to handle solely. So, what is your strategy? What do you have to say about that?
So thank you for the question, Mustafa. Number one, I completely agree with you. And because coming from a chemical engineering student, our workload is already quite a lot. So maybe the audience here, maybe you are wondering, why am I taking as a solo candidate? Well, for me, number one is that I just wanted to step out of my comfort zone and at the same time do something that's maybe more than what I can do. But I simply do it because number one, I'm interested and I'm very open-minded and I'm a fast learner. And what I know about being a CRO is that there's going to be a shadowing period for a couple of months where I'll be in the presence of you and Ikra, to be able to see and understand how being a CRO works, how MUISS works, and considering the fact that from my previous experiences of trying to organize, let's say from my pool captain days, organizing practices and negotiating with the higher ups of Manticore, if I was able to learn that much in that short period of time, I feel like within those shadowing period months, learning from great individuals like you and Ikra, I would be much more inclined to learn, at the same time absorb all the new information that you guys would have taught me, which I don't see that much as a problem being a solo candidate. And at the same time also, there is also an opening position for interim, I think. So whoever is the lucky person that gets to work with me, I hope, ends up being a good candidate to be my working partner for CRO. But for now, being a solo candidate, I feel confident, and at the same time, learning from you two will be a great privilege for me next year. And all I have to do is pay attention and at the same time follow your guys' steps, which you guys have done a really great job in so far. So thank you.
All right, thank you, Dylan. So this question is going to be a bit detailed, so please follow through. One of the significant challenges that MUISS faced this year was the lack of diversity in participation and engagement across various departments. We noticed the trends where most candidates who were applying to the subcom positions only if who were only applying to the subcom positions were only applying if the department heads belong to the same ethnicity or the racial background. Now, this poses a serious issue as MUISS strives to promote inclusivity and diversity. A lack of diversity can result in smaller groups feeling underrepresented, decreased participation, and cultural blind spots. Now, what measures can be put in place to promote diversity in leadership roles, and what steps would you take to ensure that the cultural blind spots do not affect the decisions and initiatives of MUISS if the team is not diverse?
Okay, thank you for the question. When it comes to the lack of diversity, I think from the way I see it is that maybe it's not a lack of diversity, but because diversity in what we would assume is different cultures and different nationalities within the community, But I think also most of the time it's also about the mindset that these individuals in MUISS carry that make them diverse. Because maybe that there's a problem with similar ethnicities that join MUISS, but at the same time, each person is different, which I feel. And I do understand that MUISS is for international students and there should be more diversity, which I fully agree that there should be more. There should be more cultures and more nationalities that join MUISS because it is for international students. But I do feel that it shouldn't neglect the fact that everyone has anything to offer. At the same time, the current candidates that have stepped their foot forward first and taken that big step to being able to sign up to become the future office bearers for MUISS, I think is a statement that shouldn't be underestimated, considering the fact that maybe even though me and myself, let's say like the future MUISS head, Pharrell, me and him are both Indonesian, it doesn't neglect the fact that me and him have both different mindsets on how we see the world. At the same time, how the diversity that we've felt in our lives can affect and play a part in the future OBs of MUISS.
Alright, thank you, Dylan.
All right, Dylan. The next question we have for you is now, what are some of the challenges that you expect while you are a CRO, and how would you be handling that?
So when it comes to hello.
It's fine. You can just continue speaking.
Okay. So when it comes to the challenges that I would face as being a CRO, well, first of all, I don't want to make it seem that I know everything because I really don't. Most of the time, I'm always asking the questions. But from the previous MCNs that I would like to highlight, being part of the performers, I did see that it was quite not an issue, not a big issue. I did see that when it came to people getting their food during the buffet, it was quite crowded. It was quite overcrowded, and being part of that line, let's say, and at the same time having another performance happening, in my opinion, didn't necessarily seem fair for the performers that were performing now because other people were busy getting their food. So maybe as a CRO, when it comes to events problems like that, I would, number one, plan ahead and organize and manage the time much more, not better, but in a much more flexible way, where number one, both performers are able to eat, because because I have a feeling, being a performer myself, we didn't get the same chance as others to be able to get food because you're busy preparing, and at the same time give equal opportunities for the performers and also for the attendees for the event. Which, if I can give out some solutions or some suggestions, maybe increase the number of ushers. Of course, that would increase budget, but let's say if we have an infinite budget, let's say we can increase the number of ushers, or at the same time we can we can prioritize performers for getting food, because let's say, for example, that's 1/3 of the total amount of candidates of MCN that come are performers. We can feed them first before, considering the fact that they have much more difficulty in getting food after when they're performing and during the event, and then we can cater to the people who have come and paid their tickets in full and be able to cater for them without having that much of a big line and cut down the amount of people trying to get food at the same time, and maybe even stretch the time back earlier for food, so all the candidates can have a opportunity to see each and every country and culture's performance, and so that there isn't any unfair advantage to them that some people didn't get to see it, and of course that creates a more fair and more equal for everyone in the end. When it comes to problems, let's say within the organization or within my job, let's say for example there's an emergency, there's a crisis that happens. Of course, ideally that I plan for this earlier. As a CRO, I plan for this earlier, and at the same time make up a contingency plan. Well, of course, crises and emergencies come up from anywhere. So I guess more so it's about how fast I can think and what is the best way to handle this problem without, number one, causing it to become bigger or having too many people involved, and at the same time still maintaining the scope of me being a CRO. So I guess that's the best answer that I can give you for now.
Fair enough. Dylan, just a follow-up question. You pointed out a very valid point about the buffer system. Now, since the last two years, since we've been having MCN physically, we've been facing that problem with the buffet. And the thing is that given that we have like limited time that we have the venue for, it's not easy to stretch that break time. So I appreciate the point that you came up with. Anything else that you would be implementing in order to make MCN a better event next year?
I guess considering the fact that I was part of the performers, we did have to come quite early to be able to prepare and be backstage and dress up. So I guess during that time that we spent, let's say 2 or 3 hours that we came early, we could have also spent that time maybe even getting food packages or have the opportunity to get food. And of course, I have to take into account the budget that it takes to at the same time package the food and at the same time have food for the performers. But it would be much nicer for the performers, especially they're the ones that are putting the hard work and effort to be able to entertain all the attendees in MCN, to be able to be fed first. And like I said before, if they're able to be fed first during that time when they have to prepare, because 2 or 3 hours is quite long, let's say, and it's before anyone starts registering and coming in, they can at the same time, number one, have food in their stomachs, and at the same time, not need to face the hassle of queuing up with all their dresses, because of course, all the dresses are very nicely made, so we don't want to mess that up also. So I guess that would also be something that I would add on to.
That is a valid point. Unfortunately, this year we had like a strict time, which for which we had to open dinner from the venue. But if possible, I would appreciate if you do it next year.
Thank you, thank you.
All right. So my third question is, during one of our MUISS collaboration events this year, one of the collaborating parties expressed feeling overshadowed by MUISS due to its larger structure. Now, why do you think this occurred, and what steps would you take to ensure that smaller groups feel equally valued in future collaborative events with MUISS?
Sorry, but I didn't really understand the question. Can you re-say it again?
Alright, so I'll explain a little bit more, alright? So during this year, we had a collaborative event with one of the smaller communities. So the community expressed feeling overshadowed because due to MUISS's larger structure. So in your tenure, if you are to be selected, how do you prevent such things from happening again so that smaller groups feel equally valued in future collaborations with MUISS?
So, hello? Hello? Hello, okay. So, when it comes to making sure that other smaller communities don't get, let's say, intimidated or feel overshadowed by the big organization of MUISS, number one, first, from my perspective, is that we need to understand what the needs and wants is of that committee that we are collaborating with. Because at the same time, us, MUISS, as a big body, we can't overshadow the fact that these communities exist. At the same time, they also have a voice, they also have ears, and they also have people who are wanting to be heard from MUISS too. So when it comes to how to prevent feeling overshadowed, I think number one, MUISS needs to, I'd say as a CRO and picking the CRs, I need to understand how these communities work, let's say the communities that we're going to collaborate with, be more so in the field and understand the dynamics of what happens. So instead of taking my judgment from an outsider's voice, I take it from my own thoughts and own feeling and own judgment by being able to, number one, mingle with them and understand what their problems is. So then next time when another collaborative event comes by, I'm able to cater to these problems that maybe they don't have the privilege or they don't have the connection to be able to voice out to me, and make sure that since we are reaching out to them, they're the ones that feel respected and at the same time feel dignified to be able to work with us as a big organization.
Alright, thank you, Dylan.
Fair enough. Dylan, my next question for you would be, now as a CRO, one of the first few jobs which are in line for you is the recruitment of the CRs and the recruitment of your subcommittee. Now, how would you ensure that the country representatives that you're recruiting, they're in line with the points that we have as part of the MUISS constitution, and how would you ensure that they're the best representatives of the country? The same for the subcoms.
Thank you for the question. Well, of course, when it comes to choosing people to do a job, it can be quite hectic. I'm pretty sure from your experience, it is quite hectic to find people to become good CRs. And I do understand that, especially me when I was the pool captain, it was quite difficult to find suitable players. And at the same time, you had a lot of people being competitive, telling me middle of the night, hey, I want to play. And, it was quite difficult to mitigate that sometimes because everyone wanted to play. But at the same time, as a CRO being in this position, I have to be fair. And I have to put the interests of MUISS and what MUISS stands for above myself and above my own judgment. So I guess when it comes to choosing the right CRs and the right subcoms, number one is how well can they communicate to people? because they're going to be the ones in charge of bridging that connection between their international community to me. And I need to make sure that the people who are there aren't the people who take 12 hours or 24 hours or 2 days to reply to their messages when it comes to information. Because at the same time, that's inefficient. And at the same time, I also have deadlines to meet, and they also have deadlines to meet. So if I know that someone is punctual through communication, that gives me a good understanding that they respect my time and they respect their time also. Number two, also, it would be how involved are they with their community? How oriented are they with the people in that community? Because I'm not going to pick a CR that just came into Monash and doesn't know a lot of people or doesn't know anyone, let's say in the Indonesian community like PPI. If I first came there and I got chosen as CR, I would be clueless also at the same time what to do, because I don't know what the hierarchy is, I don't know who the president is, and I don't know the people among me to be able to represent them. So I would definitely find someone that's experienced and at the same time knows the people in the organization and at the same time has worked in the organization. And I guess another key thing, number three, is honesty and accountability, as I said to myself, as I said before. Because without those key attributes of a CR, I don't think that number one, communication will be fluid, because I don't want people to lie to me. If there's a problem, I want the problem to come to me, and I don't want anyone to sugarcoat anything. And at the same time, if there is something that goes wrong, I don't want to be the one that nitpicks and at the same time has to drag it out of them. I want them to say, "Hey, I messed up," and blah blah. I would respect them much more if they did that, because now I know that they have my respect. They know where they went wrong, and at the same time, communication flows. Because as I said, I don't want any major conflicts that happen just because of miscommunication. Because let's say, for example, someone doesn't talk to me and there's a problem, I start thinking, overthinking, or there's a misunderstanding, and then there's another conflict that happens. So I guess that's the process on what I would do in picking suitable CRs for this year.
Fair enough. Dylan, just a follow up. Can you briefly let me know? There could be instances when the CRs leave midway. We've seen that happen even
Pardon?
last year.
Leak mid-
CRs leave midway.
Oh, leave. Okay.
Yeah, so the positions are open then. And there are instances when your subcommittee, they don't respond. So you will have a good number of subcoms if you're able to find them. But there are instances when they don't respond, they don't do the work within the deadlines. So how do you expect to cope up with that?
Okay, so we're gonna go back to communication again. Of course, I expect my CRs and at the same time my subcoms to be proactive when it comes to communication. But of course, not everyone maybe has the time. Although I find it really hard to believe that some people may not have the time or are busy, and at the same time have other events that are happening within their lives where they can't answer. And of course, I fully respect that. But at the same time, also, for me to be able to understand that and know that, I need them to tell me that first. So I guess I will make sure that, hey, if anyone is going to reply late and at the same time has something coming up, please tell me, just to make sure that I don't feel like I'm getting aired online and aired by my own subcommittee, because it's not a nice feeling. And at the same time, I don't want to feel any sort of animosity to my team just because of that. And also, when it comes to late replies, maybe it is also my job to make sure that they know what they're doing first, because I'm the one also giving orders to. I'm the one telling my CRs and telling the subcoms what they need to do. So in my opinion, I might as well give most of the information out first for them to read. They know what to do, and then they can reply with simply, "Okay, got it. I know what to do," because at least I've done my part in making sure that they're informed and they know what to do. When it comes to them being accountable for their behavior, accountable for meeting deadlines, of course that's up to them. And of course, when I choose them, I trust them that they'll have the respect and discipline to be able to fulfill that. But if they cannot, then of course it's not my job to give warning letters or intimidate anyone. That's not my job. So I'll definitely consult with MUISS head and the people above me to get a rough idea on how to be able to deal with this in the most fair way. Because at the same time, maybe things that have occurred that I didn't know about was out of their control. So of course, I have to have some sort of humanness, some sympathy when it comes to that. And whatever happens to that, of course, I trust my CRs, I trust myself, and at the same time, I trust the team around me to be able to help me make the best decisions.
Great answer, Ikram.
All right, thank you, Dylan. That's a great answer. For the past 2 years, MUISS has faced challenges in appointing small communities. And as you have also mentioned earlier, that you observed a lot of European students around campus. Now, if selected, what actions would you take to resolve this issue and ensure proper representation for students moving forward, given that most students just don't sign up to be CRs, and it's very hard to find CR candidates in general for smaller communities?
Okay, thank you for the question. When I specifically talk about the European Union because if, let's say, the crowd here and at the same time, you guys here standing, I did realize that. I mean, I think everyone realized that when it came to MCN, it mostly focused on Asia as the main continent for the culture, right? And we didn't see that much from, like I said, Europe. And if anyone's from South America, maybe they didn't show up and didn't represent. So, from how I see it, is struggling to find CRs, number one, is also dependent on the people who at the same time sign up. Because also it's not within our control to be able to force people to be CRs. And at the same time, we can create committees, we can offer people, hey, there's a bunch of people that come from the same background as you want to join. We can't force people to do that. What we can do is offer them something that they didn't think of before. Offer them a place where, as corny as it sounds, a second home. Because most people, like I said, in campus, as an international student myself, and as international students, as the people sitting right here, we find it sometimes difficult to be able to fit in when it comes to campus because there's so many people in campus. And a good example is the European people, because I always see European people walking around, and not just walking around aimlessly by themselves, but they walk around in a community. So I'm also thinking, why not make them a European community? Not everyone's going to be from the same country in Europe. So similar to the Middle East, why not make a European community? And why I say that, because, I mean, Monash is an international university, right? So we can't just cater to just the Asia, you know. You got to cater to other people around, and maybe exchange students don't have that privilege, don't have that need to be able to want that, because maybe they didn't have that back to where they come from. So instead of trying to force people to become CRs and form communities, why don't we give them an opportunity or give them something that they want to have, they strive for? Maybe give them the freedom to be able to set up their own events, because at the same time when communities start getting bigger, they start getting recognition, and at the same time that's when people start looking at them and say, hey, this is another party, this is another community, and you know, they seem pretty cool, so let's include them also. And when they get big enough, maybe we can include them MCN too. I don't know, but I think it just all comes from the first step, to be honest.
All right, just a follow-up question. So for them to have a community and to build a community, you need to find the representatives of those specific communities and countries first. So when there are a lack of people coming forward to take on that leadership role, how do you as a CRO really promote and make sure that these small communities are also included and they also feel encouraged to come forward?
Okay, so the way I see it is this, is that if there aren't enough people from that specific community that are wanting to step forward and be a CR candidate, well, number one is, what are they doing first that wants, or what are people doing first within the university that they want to become a CR, you know? Because their motivation to become a CR can be many things, but most of the time they want to represent their own community. They want to feel that they have the responsibility to be able to bridge the gap between the student association and the students below. So I guess that's one of the main motivating factors for students who want to become CR. Now, when it comes to people who don't necessarily want to put their foot forward and take that step, maybe that's why, maybe they don't have that motivation, or they don't have that reason why to become a CR. So I guess the way I would somewhat handle that, because like I said, you can't force anyone to be a CR, is include them, or make, let's say, international events more accessible to them. Make sure that they're informed about the cultures that are around Monash. And at the same time, make them more inclined to be able to talk to people who are different from their own. Because at the same time, I always see it's a common thing. People tend to stick with people, to the people who they like and people who they know who are the same as them. But at the same time, that doesn't really foster any relationship, especially international relationship. So why not we give them an opportunity, not necessarily to become a CR, let's say, but give them an opportunity to be able to mingle with other people, to be able to get that motivation, to get that want and need to want to become a CR. Because at the same time, if they don't understand what being a CR is and what having a community is, and they'll never know what it feels like to even run a community or even have a community. So I'd say that maybe even set up workshops or set up information platforms where um, the people who are minorities who don't necessarily want to become a CR, they know what it's like to be a CR and what it's like to be in a community. Maybe that'll give them a reason why to step forward. So yeah.
All right, thank you, Dylan. I would love to see you implement these.
No, like, yeah, Dylan, it's really important that one of your main goals and one of your main aims as the CRO would, of course, be to increase the engagement of the international student community. And given that these small communities don't get those platforms, it's important for you to have more initiatives or make them come to the flagship events such as One World and MCN. So, just to follow up with this, are there any specific initiatives that you're planning to implement once you get this position?
So when it comes to initiatives, as of right now, I'm not necessarily in a place to talk about any new initiatives because essentially I don't want to be reaching out of my scope of being a CRO. What I will say though is that from all the previous, I can number one first look at the previous performance of past CROs, including you and Ikra. See what initiatives have you guys at the same time, what has worked in the past and what still works now, because I don't want to make anything that's new that can potentially break down MUISS or break my position or credibility as a CRO. I want to continue the legacy of what previous CROs, including you, which are my predecessors, have done, which is a great MCN event, great One World event, and great management overall when it becomes a CRO. So I don't want to toil with that. So right now, I'm not focused. I'm focused in making sure that I follow what's been done, what has worked, and then through my way, I'm getting more experience being in MUISS. Then I will start initiating and making things new that may or may not work, but at the same time, I follow the same solid blueprint that has been done from past CROs that has worked, and at the same time can continue doing well during my tenure as a CRO.
Fair enough.
All right. So, my next question would be, in high pressure situations such as organizing MCN, which typically occurs around week 9 when academic demands are high, usually OBs, CRs, and subcoms are swamped with work, and we have experienced significant delays in plan completion from all departments, be it subcoms, be it CRs, be it departments within MUISS, which was understandable. So, while everyone managing heavy workloads, if departments are unable to meet deadlines, would you prioritize the deadline or the quality of work? Additionally, during the final stages of MCN, how would you, as a CRO, would manage the team to prevent burnout while still meeting the overall expectations?
Well, first we have to remind ourselves that we are students. We're not. We're not. This is not our main job. Our main job in university is to study and get up with our studies right. So when we're approaching the end of the semester where academic demands are high, of course, number one, that we have to prioritize that first because what are we really here for? We have to prioritize that first. But at the same time, with all the responsibilities that we have taken up, we essentially knew what we were getting into, and we know that being in MUISS isn't just a simple task or isn't just a title. It's an actual piece. It's an actual part of your life, a part of your life in uni that you have to take part in, that you have to deliver the job to. So I guess when it comes to managing those high pressure scenarios and at the same time preventing the team from burning out, then on one first is to make sure that each and every member of the team is heard first. I hear their concerns. As a MUISS body, we know each other's concerns and we know what we're feeling. Because if we're not able to sympathize with each other and understand where we're coming from, and that's also going to lead to a lot of miscommunications because at the same time, when you talk about deadlines are set for us to meet, but at the same time, not everyone can work at the same pace as those deadlines that catch up to us. So also being a good leader and a good CRO is understanding that some people have different priorities, but being able to cater their priorities and how they work to that set goal or set deadline is, I guess, a way that I will approach things. So let's say, for example, there's someone who's mostly focused on our academics and they join MUISS. I'd make sure that number one, if their main focus is academics, sure, by all means, focus on your academics. But I remind them also that in the end of the day, it's not everything too. I want to make sure that they also get that part of that uni aspect where, oh, you're part of an organization, you're part of a bigger family in uni. Especially if you're far away from home, you're around these wonderful people that aren't just here just to help you. Let's say for me with my engineering work, or let's say for you, Mustafa, with your computer science work, it's everyone's helping you together to be able to improve as a person, not just as a student. So I would be motivating as a leader to be able to prevent burnout, but at the same time, also be just, also be fair. I can't just be too lenient on people for missing out deadlines. Because at the end of the day, if you miss out deadlines, worst case scenario, MCN doesn't happen. And that's a huge sham for everyone. So of course, I'll be fair, I'll be just, but at the same time, I'll be empathetic. I have sympathy for my subcommittees. I have sympathy for the people around me. Because at the end of the day, I don't want people to think that I'm unfair, I'm a bad leader. I want them to understand that yes, I'm strict, yes, I'm just. But at the same time, I do understand that everyone has their own priorities in life, and I want to make sure that they're catered to that first before approaching work. And typically, when people are in a better mood and feel much more calmer and feel happier before they do work, they'll do a good job. So, in the end of the day, quality and at the same time meeting those deadlines hopefully come hand to hand.
All right. One of the things we have experienced while managing MCN was that during the final stages, all the subcom members and everybody in the team usually are burning out or we're faced with a lot of workload. So, how do you, as a CRO, manage that, and how do you make sure that we deliver the quality of work while also sympathizing with your teammates?
Okay, that's a good question. Quite a tricky question, I will say, but
Let me know
it's
if
good.
you want me to rephrase.
It's okay, it's okay. I understand the question. Okay, so you mentioned burnout, right? And everyone's finding it difficult to gain the motivation and gain the strength to be able to continue with work, right? Both academic and at the same time for MUISS. I think when it comes to burnout, yes, it's because of the workload, but maybe it's also because of the environment. Because, okay, I'm not trying to downplay any of you guys for the bad environment. I'm not trying to say that. But what I am trying to say is that when people tend to feel burnt out, I feel that number one, they're not getting the right motivation. At the same time, they're feeling pressure to do something that they don't want to do. Because let's face it, we don't really want to do assignments that much while we're planning for this big event, right? But instead of feeling like that, maybe we can switch the narrative. We can say that, hey, we have this big event happening. Wouldn't it be cool if at the same time we also get our assignments done? So we can chill, we can relax, we can enjoy this event, we can continue planning for this event. And with the sheer amount of workload, yes, it makes sense. We are uni students. We're not here, we're not in kindergarten trying to do ABCs. We're here doing hard stuff that are in the future going to reflect on our future careers, right? So at the same time, we knew what we were getting into. And at the same time, if everyone's in the right page, is in the right line, is in the right way of thinking, knowing that, yeah, this is a big responsibility, but it's us that are doing it. It's nobody else. And we are the students here that have been selected from our predecessors to be able to continue the amazing job they have done. And I'm pretty sure that even though that there will be burnout, there will be people who are tired. It'll be a much more easier job to be able to motivate them back, especially with that motivation and mindset in mind.
Well stated. Dylan, now the next question which I have for you, I would like you to answer it briefly. Now, once you are in the position of a CRO, one of your main goals, one of your main objectives is to ensure that every other community, which is part of MUISS, they get an equal opportunity and there's fairness for all communities. How would you ensure, let's say for our flagship events such as One World and MCN, that every single community is getting an equal representation and their voices are heard?
So by equal representation, do you mean an equal chance to showcase their culture, or is this in general like the amount of people that are
Maybe in
performing?
general, but for instance, let's say some communities might complain that their stalls are at a location where they are not getting
Okay.
that much of a
Okay.
representation.
Okay, if you talk about One World and we talk about bazaars and stalls, I think that's more on preparation, at the same time how well informed the people are when it comes to those events, because Monash, it's not that big of a campus, so of course you see the same faces that we walk by. So in my opinion, when there's stalls that are opening up, that are colorful, that are showcasing cultures, it shouldn't be that difficult to miss. But at the same time, also people aren't going to know which stalls are there, which stalls is there. It's on different sides of the school, and as you said, maybe they don't see it, right? So I guess it's giving them a layout, it's giving them information about, hey, the stalls are going to be here, 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 here. So they know, hey, I want to go to the Pakistani stall, I want to go to the Indonesian stall, I want to go to the Indian stall. So they know where to go instead of trying to wander around and try to find where that stall is. And I guess it also gives them much easier navigation to be able to find where the stalls are, because I can speak for myself. If I'm struggling to find a stall or struggling to find a place where I want to get some food, I end up ditching it because it's too difficult to find. So I end up getting something from the canteen. Maybe that's something similar to all the other students who don't recognize the stalls that are in those places where people don't see, because they simply don't know where it is and don't know how to get to there. So I guess it's more so an information issue rather than an actual like stall placement issue.
All right, that's well said. Now, Dylan, another question which I have for you is, now internal conflicts are very common. We've seen it happen. We've seen it happen in the last few years as well. There are instances when the CRs themselves get into a fight, and this has a major effect on the whole environment of the community. So, what would you do in that situation? Another question which I have for you is that all the problems, the root cause always comes down to communication. So, are there any specific channels which you would be following or introducing in order to make sure there is effective communication?
So I'll
I
answer.
would request you to answer briefly.
Okay, so I'll answer the first part of the question. If there is a fight, number one, I need to know what that fight is about. What's the main issue? Who are the people who are fighting? At the same time, how can I get to the bottom of it without causing the problem to become bigger? At the same time, I don't want people to start throwing hands. At the same time, start headbutting with each other too much. I keep it professional. At the same time, understand that you guys are fighting to work towards a solution instead of fighting against each other. So that's what I would heavily stress first. The second question is, what was the second question?
Mainly about communication.
Communication. So I guess communication channels, I'm pretty sure everyone here is familiar. And I'm pretty sure MUISS and also MUSA also use, let's say, WhatsApp, maybe even using a Google Drive link to be able to communicate when it comes to information, when it comes to tasks. So I'd say if it's worked before, let's say if WhatsApp, Telegram worked before, then why not use it? Why not continue using it again? And as I said, communication is up to the people. And also, it's also part on us to make the communication easy. So when it comes to making better communication channels, I don't really have that much in mind. But I will say that, I guess, as a CRO, make the information I'm trying to give much more clear for people to understand. So they can question me, they can ask me, and at the same time, they feel more comfortable. And I guess be a level with them so they can comfortably talk to me when it comes to that.
All right, thank you, Dylan. That'll be it from our end. Thank you so much for your answers and best of luck.
Thank
Best of luck to you, Dylan.
Thank you.
Alright, can you please give a round of applause to Prime Mustafa? So thank you so much for that time for asking Dylan a lot of questions. So now I'll be proceeding to the next section for today, which is the Q&A session from the students. So for all the audiences that are watching the debating session on the live stream, you guys can put in your questions in the chat box. We'll be addressing on behalf of you. Meanwhile, for the students that are present with us today physically, if you have any questions, please raise your hand. We'll be passing the mic to you so that the live stream audience can hear your question. So we have one question there.
Hi. Okay, so just one question. This year in MUISS, we noticed that there were a lot of event cancellations within communities because of low participation from the community itself. So how would you prevent that, and how would you go about that?
So events from the separate international communities?
Yes.
Okay. I guess when it comes to dealing with that problem, it's more on how can we convince and at the same time show the potential candidates that we want in the event what they're missing out on, and at the same time what's in it for them. Because I'm pretty sure that when it comes to events, you have to pay. The participants have to pay, right? Because you have to cover budget and everything there is. So at the same time, we need to let them know that what value are they getting with this amount of money that they're spending, and also inform them what's going to happen. Most of the time, maybe they don't really understand what's happening and see that, oh, this is just another one of the events, maybe to just even get money from their pockets. We don't want that to be the case. We want them to understand that, yeah, you guys are paying this amount to get this in return, to have a good time. So I guess it's to emphasize the value that they're getting from this event that they join, instead of rather trying to get as many participants, because maybe if the goal is trying to get as many participants, that doesn't work out. But maybe if it's understanding and making sure that these participants understand the value that they're getting, more people will start to sign up for themselves and not need us to be able to keep convincing them. So yeah, hope that answers.
Just to follow up, how would you convey to them that this is what you're getting from this?
I mean, that's not really my place to say. It's more of a marketing issue. But I would say that as a CRO, number one is make sure that the CRs give the message out more clearly to the people within that community, because they are the bridge between me and also the international communities below. So I want to make sure that they're fully informed of what's happening. And at the same time, they're able to convey the message that I want to convey to them if I are talking to them, and make sure that it's not about the event trying to make as much money or as much participants as possible. It's to make sure number one is the quality of the event is maintained, and at the same time making sure that the people who do join see the quality and see the time and effort that we have put in over the fact that we just need more headcounts, and I think that would persuade more people to coming in. So yeah.
Alright, is there any follow-up question? Oh, good. Is there any other questions from the line? There is. Okay. Can you pass the mic to her, please? And also at the same time, for a live audience, if you are shy to ask the questions physically, you can always go to the YouTube video and just put your questions there. We'll be addressing on behalf of you. Alright? Okay, so what's your question?
All right, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. So obviously you'll be working with the team and everything, right? And maybe not, that's up to you. You might have a second CRO, right?
Yeah.
So let's say if there's something that you want to do but your CRO doesn't, the other CRO or other MUISS members don't particularly agree on, how do you, what would your next course of action be to kind of resolve that issue and make sure there's no bitterness on either end?
Well, as a leader, number one is I need to understand what responsibility and how much power I have when it comes to the decision made. I don't want to be overstepping the boundaries when it comes to the position that I'm in. And when it comes to working with another CRO, if there is another person that's going to work with me to become my partner CRO, then of course, number one, if they have a disagreement with me, I want to first understand what side they're coming from. And of course, they're not going to disagree with me if they don't have a reason to disagree. So I need to understand where they're coming from. And at the same time, I also need to use my judgment and at the same time ask around the people in the community, what do you think about it? So to understand, okay, maybe there's something that I don't know about the decision I'm going to make. But because they disagree with me, I'd take it as a more of an appreciation where, okay, I may lack in this, but if I don't, then why not do I take the decision? Because now I'm the one in charge of the decision, if it is fully my responsibility. So I'm not going to undermine. I'm not going to undermine. No, so I'm not going to undermine myself when it comes to the decision I make just because someone else said it's not good. But if I see that it's good and I've taken all the necessary risks and analysis to be able to see whether or not it's a good risk to take, then why not I take it? And at the same time, if I'm able to tell and convince my partner CRO, then of course the other people will follow too.
Is there any follow-up question?
Yeah, just a small follow-up. You mentioned that you will be in a leadership role a lot, right? So what qualities do you think you bring to the table particularly that makes you suitable to be in that sort of leadership role more than just given that you're working in a team?
So is this more like a personal question, like me as a leader?
Yeah, what qualities do you think you have that would
okay.
make you
All right.
suitable for that?
Okay.
Yeah.
I guess when it comes to the quality of a leader, number one, I'm a very straightforward person. I don't cut out the grain out of things. If things aren't looking good, then I will say it isn't looking good. But that doesn't mean that I will say it in a harsh way. There is a good way to be able to tell things that aren't working within my committee. So I will bring it out to them. I will voice it out to them in a professional manner. But that doesn't mean that I'm going to skip out and try to sugarcoat everything when it comes to issues. I'm fair. I make sure that everyone has an equal opportunity to be able to voice out their concerns. I don't necessarily see people as above or below. I see them as the same because I want to make sure that they know that I see them as the same playing field. So they're brave enough and at the same time, they're comfortable talking to me. And at the same time, I'm good with my communication. So when it comes to checking up on people, when it comes to keeping in tabs with other people, I do a really great job in making sure that everyone around me knows that they can get to me, they can contact me, and I'm at the same time, I don't take things too deeply either. So I think that's a good attribute to be a good leader because nothing's really personal in this world, and most of the time it's strictly professional. So yeah.
Okay. Is there a question from there as well? Okay.
Hi, am I clear?
Yes.
Okay, so my question is a bit of a hypothetical situation. So, say during an event, a CR reaches out to you and they tell you that they're not happy with how their community is being represented or that they're not being given a fair chance. Now, keeping in mind that during an event where you're a CRO and you're going to be very busy and you won't have time to sort of, hold meetings and stuff, how will you handle the situation in that time itself?
So if I were just to re-clarify, if there's a certain problem that a CR is facing, and I'm currently in the midst of working a big event, and then that CR comes to me with a problem, how will I handle
The
that?
CR has the problem with the event itself.
With the event they're hosting or with the event I'm running, like let's say MCN, or is it just
Yeah,
their own
something
event?
like that, yeah.
Okay. I'm sorry, but I don't really understand it. Can you like rephrase it in a much clearer way?
So I'll just give you an example.
Yeah.
For example, during MCN, I, being a CR, came up to you and said, okay, I don't like the way I'm being represented in this scenario, and I don't think we're being treated fairly. And if the problem is being presented to you during event, how would you handle that in that time itself?
Okay, I understand. So when it comes to misrepresentation, and let's say CR is not feeling misrepresented, of course, number one, I need to know what the problem is. Why do you feel misrepresented?
A small example could be, for example, something like, even something very small, like I could come up to you and say, oh, the lighting for our performance wasn't great and you ruined our performance, something like that, because these people are quite passionate and they worked hard. So, and that time, they will feel like they trusted you, and obviously it might even not be your fault, but you will be their point of contact naturally.
Okay. So let's say when it comes to that, right? Of course, there's only so many things that as a CRO and at the same time the people around me can control, including as a CR yourself, let's say. There's only so many things that you can control. We can't control everything, but of course it would be nice if we can make sure that we can mitigate everyone's needs and everyone's wants and at the same time keep the event running to how everyone wants it to run. But if you were to come to me and say, I feel misrepresented because of an issue, with a technical issue, let's say, with a technical issue, it's safe to say that when it comes to technicalities about lights and when it comes to the stage and everything, we had that planned out before. And maybe we didn't realize that that was upsetting to some people, upsetting to some communities, because we don't have any initiative to really upset anyone. We just want the event to go well and at the same time run well. So if you were to come to me and say that problem in the event right now, to be honest, I will say that the event is running right now. If it's a change that we can make instantly, then sure, of course, go ahead. But if it's something that has already happened and something that we can't take back, then of course I have to be realistic and say, hey, it's already happened. Thank you for bringing it up, and we'll talk about it later when it comes to the debrief, so we understand that maybe next year, since it's already happened, we can do something better from your feedback and credit you for the feedback also. So next year that you don't feel misrepresented, because it does come once every year. And if something's happened, I can't simply just redo it again. It's unfair for everyone too. So of course, I'd apologize first if it was unfair to you, and thank you for the feedback, and we'll take it into account for next year's MCM. So yeah.
Is there any question here? Oh, good. All right. Before we proceed to another question first, right? There's one last question that I'd like to address first. Then we'll go to you. Is it okay?
Yeah, that's cool.
All right. Oh, is it you on the live stream?
No.
Okay. Okay. So the question that is being asked in the live stream is, how would you describe your leadership style when it comes to guiding a team through difficult decisions or uncertain times?
So my leadership style.
Yeah, leadership style when it comes to.
But I don't want to neglect the fact that all the other people that are working around me are leaders within themselves, and understand that they also have a voice and they also have concerns to voice out to me. And the end of the day, I want to make sure that the people around me aren't afraid to talk to me and point out my errors and mistakes. But at the same time, I want them to be able to do that and give justification, give reason to why. Because I'm simply not going to listen to an objection if there's no basis, if there's no context behind it. So I guess my leadership style is it's more strict, it's more fair, and at the same time, I want everyone to contribute, but at the end of the day, I'm the one that makes the major decision. Because maybe in this situation, I know best on what to do, and of course, if I listen to the people around me, to the advisors around me, they can help me. But ultimately, this decision is made by me in the end.
He's not the judge.
All right. So for the live audience to ask this question, I hope that address your question. So,
He can show.
sir, is it your turn?
So, as someone in such a demanding role, how do you balance your professional responsibilities with your personal life and maintain your well-being?
That's an amazing question. So, I guess when it comes to being professional and at the same time balancing it out with my personal life, I'm not going to be acting professional all the time. So there will be times where, let's say, when I am in the MUSA office or in the MUISS office, I'm going to be talking to the people around me. I'm going to be talking to the other students around me. I'm not going to be talking to them as in I'm in a professional working environment, because they were all students. But when it comes to
Please start thinking.
Hi Dylan, can you hear me?
Hey, the mic's not really working, so can you speak a bit? Oh, okay.
Okay. So as it tends to happen after flagship events such as One World and MCN, there tends to be a lot of backlash. So keeping that in mind, how would you handle the criticism that tends to come after that?
So you're talking about backlash.
Backlash, and how would you handle that criticism?
So I guess backlash is a good way to understand where we went wrong sometimes, at the same time to point out our mistakes, which of course I'll take it. But also at the same time, I also need to understand what this backlash is. It could just be hate. At the same time, in the international community, you have a lot of biases when it comes to competitions. You have countries which are competing with each other. And of course, when it comes to some countries who didn't get an award versus those who did get an award, they will feel some type of bias. Especially, let's say, for example, hypothetical example, I am Indonesian, I become CRO, MCN comes by, and Indonesia wins all the awards. So maybe people will start feeling like, hey, this is bad. These guys just being biased to his own people. Of course, I understand that, but I hope that as a CRO, I will be put in a position always to be fair, to be just. So even though if there is backlash, I'm confident in myself in knowing that I did a good job in being fair, giving equal opportunities to each country. And whether or not anyone wants to say anything, well, that's not really my duty anymore because the event already happened. I can keep listening to backlash and keep have it drill my head in. But at the same time, if the event went good, and if only a minority of people, if one or two people, or maybe 5 people out of the hundreds of students that attend the MCN talk, then that's not really a major issue, to be honest. If it is backlash when it comes to my own personal self, like say, oh, the CRO was bad or something, to be fair, I wouldn't really care that much. But if it comes to attacking or criticizing the organization committee or criticizing the bigger body of MUISS, then of course I'll take action to that. So that's what I would do. I would try to make sure that I know which backlash is simply just hate or bias, or whether or not it's actually constructive and can actually help in making the future events better for everyone.
Thank you. I have another question though. It's unrelated. So in the past year, there were
Well, of course, it would be nice to know that CRs are going to stay with you during the whole duration. But of course, not everyone can fulfill that, which makes sense. Which as a CRO, I also have to understand that other people also have their own different priorities. So it would be a shame to have CRs drop out. But if that situation does come by, especially with the CRs, I would pick. Number one is not necessarily take direct, immediate action, because finding CRs isn't the easiest thing to do. What I would do, number one, is find out what was actually the reason why they left, whether or not it was more of an internal problem or an external problem for them, whether it was because of their community, whether it was because of things outside of the community, which, of course, outside of the community, I have no jurisdiction to toil with. But if it's within the community and that's the reason why they left, that's, of course, something that I have to take accountability for. And I have to find out what's the reason why that they left because of their community. And picking another CR is also another tedious job. But if I know that what's the issue, and if it was an internal issue within their committee, then I will be able to solve that first before picking another CR to make sure that this CR doesn't drop out again.
Right.
Yeah, I hope that answers your question.
Okay, thank you.
Alright, so there's actually a live stream question. Before that, is there any physical questions? Alright, so before we proceed to the live question, while the mic is being passed over, there's a live stream question that asks Dylan. You mentioned that you are currently an engineering student. That's it. And from my knowledge, they are quite busy.
Mhm.
Okay. So how would you manage the team working under you and your work as CRO during busy times?
Good question.
If I can put it as short way as possible, I'd say it's really, really good time management, I'd say. Because everyone works differently, and I know I work different from other people. And I will say that when it comes to my studies, I will be honest, I'm not that type of student who really wants to focus and keep stuck to my book all the time. Because at the same time, for me as a person, I understand that there's bigger aspects to my life than just my academics. Of course, me joining this organization may not be the same, may not be related to my engineering degree, but it's related to all the things that make my life me, which is other people. Because I have to make sure that I spend the time to be able to interact in organizations, interact with other people. Because at the end of the day, when I have graduated, I will be working in an organization most of the time. So getting this background, getting this experience is also important for my future. And yes, of course, my degree is busy, but at the same time, I feel confident in knowing that I can manage my time and also serve the MUISS committee without neglect, be able to balance everything out.
Okay, sounds great. Alright, so what's the question you have for Dylan?
You keep referring to yourself as the leader and that you are responsible for making decisions, but doesn't all MUISS office bearers operate as a team, and at the end of the day, it's a communal decision? So, what are your thoughts on that?
I agree with you when it comes to the communal decision, but from the way I see it and the way I've been taught leadership, without a leader in a group, you have a bunch of people that are sometimes confused and sometimes lost into making decisions. Because I believe that yes, everyone should have an opportunity to be able to speak and make a decision for the community, have a vote, let's say. But at the end of the day, I say that I'm a leader because at the same time, being a CRO, I should be the most informed about things. I should know things much better than other people and much better than the people, my team who are working around me. And that's what I say, that I make the decisions because number one, I may have more information than other people being in this position. At the same time, all these other people also have the decision, but at the same time, they should also understand that maybe they know something that I don't, and at the same time, I have to also be humble also and say that maybe I don't know something that they know. But being a leader also, I have to pave a way and at the same time create a path for where my team is going, and to make sure that we don't divert away from the main goal during our time in MUISS.
Okay, do you have a follow-up question? No. Okay, is there any questions from the live audience? Or any questions from the live stream as well? Okay, there's one question there.
Okay, question for you. I think this is more of a general question. I don't think there's a right or a wrong answer for this. It has to do with the increase of international students in Monash ever since 2020. So with the increase in percentage of international students versus local students here in Monash, I'd like to get your opinion as a potential future CRO. What areas of the international student experience do you think are worth prioritizing, or areas you think will be worth looking into for future development and growth? Right now, we are standing at about 65 to 70% international students here in Monash, Malaysia, and it's only going to grow wider.
I think that percentage is a testament of how well Monash is as a university to be able to bring that many international students from around the world to be able to study here. And of course, talking as a future CRO, I would say that being part of the international community, I would sympathize with the issues and at the same time the problems they face as international students. Of course, a lot of people come far away from home to be able to study here to get a better education. And of course, maybe one of the biggest problems and issues is settling in. So when it comes to making sure that I can cater to each and every one of them, instead of looking at them as each individual person, I look at them as a group and understand that, hey, maybe these people who are new, they don't have the right communication channels, they don't know what Malaysia is, they don't know how campus life is, they don't know what their environment is. and being able to make sure that they're well informed about what they're going into, at the same time being able to orient themselves in student life, especially in Malaysia, especially for those who live whose home country is far from Malaysia and they don't know anything about it. It would be great to set up events like workshops. Let's say from October intake from mine, we had Jom Sunway. Some people had Jom KL, which allowed international students to walk around the area, walk around KL, to be able to understand where they're living at. And maybe even simple things such as learning how to use touch and go, or learning about the Sunway area itself, where the hospitals are, where maybe people who focus on health, where the gym is, and at the same time, the necessary information, let's say for insurance, if something bad happens to them, so they feel more comfortable and they feel more welcomed inside the community, as opposed to just coming in raw and not necessarily know what's happening, and sort of feeling like they're coming into university with open arms, knowing that they'll be taken care of during their 3 or 4 years or maybe 5 years time that they're here. So yeah.
Okay. I think in about 6 months' time, if you do get this position, you'll probably be able to answer my question more in detail, because it's as much a policy question as it is a general question in terms of student experience. But before I ask my second and last question, I wanted to ask, how familiar are you with crisis management procedures? How often have you handled crises?
So crisis is like when something bad happens and I
Yeah,
have to deal
so
with it.
imagine a PR disaster, for example.
Okay, I'll answer this. I'll be honest. When it comes to that type of crisis management, I will say that I do like experience when it comes to that, because at the same time, this is my experience when it comes to organizations is premature, as I said. It's not as much. So to answer that question, as you said, I wouldn't be able to answer it now. But when it comes to issues like that, I would, from my own understanding, as sitting here right now, from my own understanding, I would consult with people who are much more informed than me and learn from them, especially during, let's say, the shadowing period with Mustafa and Ikra, and make sure that I learn from them first before I take action myself, so I don't go in blind. Whatever mistakes I make, trying to handle that, that'll be my responsibility. But at least I don't walk in blind. So yeah, that's what I would say.
So the follow-up to that was, as a CRO, you are more front-facing towards the students, and you're also one of the most likely to face conflict among your team, other student representatives, and members of the community. Can you walk me through how you'd handle a large-scale conflict between you and your partner, meaning your CRO partner, versus, say, representatives from a community of your choosing?
So I guess when it comes to a conflict between my partner CRO, it'll be something that only me and that person should know of, because there's no need to blow it up either, because maybe it's just a conflict or a disagreement that we have about the decision, and that doesn't necessarily mean that everyone needs to know about it. It's just something that we just need to squash and deal with. So of course I would take a more personalized approach, not necessarily attacking them personally, but pointing out that, hey, this is the issue right now, I disagree, you disagree, what can we make of a solution? That's a win-win. When it comes to a conflict that's at a much more bigger scale, from, let's say, with the CR, with the entire community, of course, if a bunch of people are telling me that there's something wrong, and then they feel the need to tell the CR that there is something wrong, then of course I need to understand what's the actual issue inside of that community first, and take a more holistic approach, as to a more like personalized approach, attacking, let's say, the president or vice president, because who knows, maybe they're not the issue, or maybe they're also confused on what to do, and I have to step in to be able to mitigate that, and at the same time deal with the issue too. So I also want to understand from, of course, the participants' perspective in the committee, the people who are also in the subcommittee in the community, and at the same time, of course, the higher ups, to know from each level what the problem is and how I can cater to all three of those levels, including the CR and also myself, and what seems like a win-win-win-win for everyone. So yeah.
Okay, good answer. I think the one thing I would want to point out is you will also need to think about the people you'll be collaborating with, meaning your fellow MUISS team members, right? Yes, some problems need to stay as quiet as possible, meaning as few people as possible need to know about it. But at the same time, you mustn't neglect the fact that enough people need to know about it to make the right call for decision making. You've mentioned a lot of times about having the right information to make the right call. At the same time, I think your head, for example, is one of the people who need to know the essential information. And in the case where, for example, if we're talking about a more serious case, like say a sexual harassment case occurred in one of the communities, that goes way beyond your so-called pay grade. It goes beyond MUISS and into the jurisdiction of welfare and student life, and therefore you need to consider further more perspectives on who are the right people to contact, to what extent the boundaries need to be set, and the information that you need to collect to make those calls. But otherwise, very good answers. Good luck for the rest of the elections.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, so is there any other live questions from the floor? If no, we'll just fully switch to live stream questions. No? All right, so there will be the remaining 2 questions from the live stream. No, Irene, can you take the mic, please, from down? Yeah. So I'll wrap up the Q&A session with the 2 last questions from the live stream. So the first question the live stream asks is, if a key school event and a major project deadline conflict, how would you decide which to prioritize and what factors would guide your decision? If you need me to repeat it.
Okay, can you repeat it, please?
All right. If a key school event and a major project deadline conflict, how would you decide which to prioritize and what factors would guide your decision?
So this is more of a question on between me and my work, essentially.
Yes.
Ooh, that's a good question. That's a good question.
So you asked a good question.
And that's a very good question. So I guess number 1 is what's in my best interest first. What's in my best interest, of course, is I'm a uni student. I'm also taking engineering, which is a pretty tough course. And of course, I don't want to repeat doing a project or repeat doing a unit at all at the same time, because that costs money, that costs effort, that costs my time, that also costs my sanity too. So I would say between a big event and a big project, whether I want to be personal or if I want to be professional. Number 1, of course, I do have to understand that I'm a student, so I have to be a bit selfish too. I need to make sure that I do work, a majority of work on this first. And at the same time, I have a team with me too. I also have another a CRO that's also working with me too. And not to downplay my future CR, whether or not she has a lot of workload, whether or not her degree is hard or anything. But I'm pretty sure that when it comes to times when she's busy, I'll be able to take up the work for her, or maybe him. And in the future also, when I'm busy, maybe my partner CRO will be able to take that work up. How do I say it? We'll be able to help with that workout too, which is maybe planning a future event. And also have a team with me too, a subcommittee too, that can also help me out. So I won't just be doing everything myself. So I'm not just a one-man team. I'm an entire team of MUISS.
Okay.
So of course I'll prioritize that project first, because that's number 1 for my own self. And of course I have to prioritize my own interests when it comes to that too.
Okay.
But when it comes to a big event like that, then of course I'll be able to mitigate and balance it with the team that I have. And I hope that I form a good team that understands that. And I'm able to help them out too whenever I can.
Okay, great answer. So moving on to the last question for today. It's actually a scenario first and then it's the question. So given that you are considered in a media hierarchy where you have a team to lead while also having a direct head which also considered a key decision maker with a higher priority, which is head of MUISS, how would you resolve conflicts between the decisions made by the executives and your own decisions to ensure that the collective decision made can satisfy both parties? Please let me know if you need me to read the questions.
Okay. So I do understand where I sit when it comes to a hierarchy, but at the same time, that other executive person is also a student. So I should be able to come to terms with them as a student. I also don't want to necessarily see them as someone that's a higher up, because simply put, I'm not trying to downplay myself either. But of course, I understand that there's some things that they can do and I can't do. And when it comes to disagreeing with decisions that they make, or them disagreeing with decisions that I make, of course, number 1 is to understand where they're coming from and also keep it professional. Because in this environment, it's not anything personal. Maybe it's just something that is a miscommunication issue, or at the same time, I don't understand where they're coming from. So at first I need to understand why they disagree with me first. And when it comes to making a solution, it's always best to have a win-win. So if they can make a decision that if they're going to make a decision that I don't like and I protest against it, then of course I should also have an equal amount of say on what I would like that decision to be or maybe alter so both sides are happy and vice versa. To make sure that we both understand that we may have different interests, but we're working towards the same goal. So I want to make sure that that's heavily emphasized over the fact that whether or not I'm right or he's right or I'm wrong and he's wrong. Because in my opinion, there's no such thing as right or wrong when it comes to a committee. It's either misunderstanding or there's solutions.
Okay.
And those solutions should benefit everyone in the end.
All right. So that's it for the Q&A session from the students. So now we'll be proceeding to the final stage for today, which is the closing statement from the candidate.
Okay.
So for this session, the candidates would emphasize and also summarize all the key points that is being discussed during the debating session today, and also tell the student, especially international students community, why they should vote for you as the CRO.
I do have to say in the beginning, I apologize if my voice is getting dry. I haven't had any water, so I'll try my best to voice this out as nicely as possible. So as a closing statement, I just want to say thank you to everyone here that has attended. The questions were really enlightening and really interesting to answer and made me think outside of my comfort zone. I also want to thank Mustafa and Ikra for being present. And it's an honor to have you, everyone here, the current office bearers, the committee members here, and I feel honored yet again to be sitting here among you all and hope to be inside this student association that you guys are working in right now. To summarize the key points that I mentioned, it's my manifesto. If I were to repeat it again in short this time, it's fair conflict resolution, a united front, and at the same time support and empowerment for all international students in Monash. And when it comes to my leadership style, when it comes to the questions that are questioning how I lead the team, those are some pretty good questions. And just to summarize, I'm not a dictator. I don't plan to be a dictator, but I plan to be fair, I plan to be just, and I plan to make sure that everyone contributes. But when it comes to the big decisions, I do plan on taking action, and I will be the one that has the best judgment when it comes to those decisions with all the consultation and with all the factors that we'll take in. When it comes to the other questions that have been asked about hypothetical scenarios, I can only plan so much for them, and what happens on that day and what happens practically in real life may be different from what I prepared for, but that's also something that I also have to prepare for in the end. Okay. So final statements, thank you everyone for coming, thank you for the questions, and I don't want to say that, oh, vote for me because I'm the only candidate here, but you know, I feel like I've given up enough information and valid opinions and points for you all to make a calculated decision to vote for me as your future CRO, and I hope that that decision comes to life for all of you guys. So thank you.
Right, so thank you so much everyone for tuning in for the last debating session for today. So from tomorrow onwards, there will be division and executive committee for the debating session, and our venue will be switched from this place to Auditorium 2. And tomorrow the debating session will be division, which includes head of welfare, head of clubs and societies, and head of activities. And this will be happening in Auditorium 2. So once again, thank you so much for your attention today, and hope you all have a good day.